And I do want to stay on this story, but take a little bit of a different angle here. The battlefield has actually expanded not just to the land and the people, but to cyberspace as well. The Israeli Defense Force has been live tweeting much of the action, including this. The IDF has embarked on an operation against Hamas, an Iranian proxy responsible for terror attacks on Israel. Hashtag Iran, hashtag Gaza. Later on, they announced the death of the Hamas military leader with this three-word tweet: Ahmed Jabari eliminated. It was coupled with the picture that you see here. Here's a tweet the IDF sent out today recapping the events from the past few days. The number since yesterday: 250 terrorist sites targeted by IDF in Gaza, 274 rockets have struck Israel, 105 Iron Dome interceptions. Even a little interesting exchange that took place in the Twitterverse. The IDF wrote, we recommend that no Hamas operatives, whether low-level or senior leaders, show their faces above ground in the days ahead, to which the Al-Qassam brigades responded, our blessed hands will reach your leaders and soldiers wherever they are. In parentheses, you opened hell gates on yourselves. Certainly a new generation of warfare. And I want to bring in RT web producer Andrew Blake to speak more about the social media aspect of this. Andrew, pretty interesting that the IDF actually announced the death of this Hamas military commander over Twitter. This was before there was any sort of press conference or official statement about it.
But moments before, they actually announced that they were beginning the strikes, too. That's how a lot of people, if you weren't there to actually hear the air raid calls or watch the destruction and the fatalities happen right in front of you, you found out because they were announcing it over Twitter that this is what we're doing right now.
Right, so it's sort of like some of the, our political wonk friends here in Washington live tweet debates. This is live tweeting by officials of the violence.
Yeah, it's a little different, but
what's happening. Well, it's very different. I mean, but the fact is, Twitter and other social media have really change the way that we see things.
Yeah, and especially in this case, but only as far as the IDF is concerned. When you actually talk about civilians, whether they're in occupied territories or not, they can't necessarily rely on social media right now because, like we saw during the Arab Spring and in places like Syria and Tunisia, just because you have the internet right now doesn't mean you're going to have it in a minute. Just because you have telephones right now doesn't mean you're going to have it in a minute. And there's a very large likelihood, and we've already seen some reported cases throughout Gaza where the electricity is being cut, communication lines are being severed, the internet is disappearing. And so while the IDF can get their messages out to anyone across the world, they can announce who they're striking, how they've done it, who they're killing. People who are actually there, the civilians and the activists and the fighters who are on the other side, might not necessarily be able to get their voices across because we're seeing those lines of communications just crumbling.
And this isn't, of course, just, internet savvy and people using the internet in the Middle East. This is going on everywhere. And certainly one interesting element of this, the hacktivist group Anonymous has actually taken a role. There have been several reports of them hacking into websites. Talk a little bit about what this is.
Well, the role so far this week is a lot like what we saw with Tunisia or Syria, where they have a collective group has kind of decided on a single target, the Israeli government establishment, and decided that they will do everything in their power to represent the people of Palestine who are suffering right now. So what a lot of Anons have been doing, where they're the usual DDoS attacks where they would just crumble a website, pretty much overload it with traffic and make it inoperable. There have been a couple defacements, too, where they've managed to actually hack into the site and post a new message, kind of taking over, showing that, they still have a little bit of power. But one really great thing that we've seen in recent days, or I guess the last day, it's been moving so quickly at this point that it's kind of a blur, but Anons and then also members of Telecomics, another loose-knit collective, what they've been doing is supplying people overseas with the necessary information in order to get past these blockades.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's not just, attacking websites and government groups that they disagree with. They've also sort of taken on a role trying to keep the internet active, trying to make it so people can use the internet. And they've even put out some information you're referring to. I want to put up, I think we have a picture. This is first aid tips for people. Talk a little bit about the significance of, methods like this.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about it. The country is, or the area rather, is pretty much on the verge of another war right now, and if you are someone there who isn't necessarily trained to, I don't know, save someone's life, it might be kind of difficult for you. So a lot of people, what they've been doing is putting out a
this
call.
wasn't in the pamphlets
No, not
distributed
quite.
by the IDF, which
No.
was saying, get away.
Yeah, but Anonymous, on the other hand, is actually lending a hand and asking for people to help transcribe medical instructions, basic first aid into English into Arabic, and any other relevant languages, and also reach out people who are a little bit more technologically savvy, hoping that those people will be able to explain to others how they can still communicate in like a really desperate time right now. People are explaining how to use dial-up modems, how to dial long-distance phone numbers in order to connect to the internet, how to tweet updates using basic cell phone connection as opposed to broadband internet. How to create your own antennas.
I certainly don't know how to do any of those
No, but
things,
if you go online, people can easily explain this to you, and they're distributing this information through zip files, through websites, through blog posts, through tweets, where they're saying, this is what you need to do right now in order to make sure that you can let your family know that you're okay and let everyone else know what's actually happening there.
Andrew, you mentioned the use of social media during the Arab Spring. You mentioned Tunisia. Talk a little bit about, I mean, and does this connect at all in terms of people communicating with each other? As you mentioned, things are happening very, very fast in Gaza, in Israel. But do you see any connection here?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if people don't have a way of communicating, the truth isn't going to go out there. I mean, I really don't want to draw the comparison, but we see something slightly similar in America where we have the Obama administration cutting down on leakers because they don't want information to get brought to the mainstream media and then bring up public opposition. Here, we're just seeing the facts of war being censored. The actual atrocities that are happening right now aren't going to be able to be communicated to the outside world like we saw during the Arab Spring because of censorship efforts in Gaza. But one thing I just found out recently, just a minute ago, that if you have like SIM cards on your phone and you're in Gaza, you might be able to pick up Egyptian internet, and that's one way right there that you can bypass it and actually get your information out should the government decide to step up their attempts to censor people.
And just real briefly, Andrew, I mean, big picture here, not just with what's going on in Gaza and Israel right now, but in the future, I mean, how does social media forever transform the way wars are fought?
I mean, this is really seeing the live tweeting of this operation start yesterday was really something that I don't think anyone was ready to happen in the history books. I don't think anyone realized that the long gone are the days of like a presidential proclamation of war, and that this is actually now how things are going to get started. I don't know if it's going to be carried out. We can hope that it doesn't happen, with the next U.S. operation. We just heard today that the incoming commander going to Afghanistan is thinking about keeping U.S. troops there past 2014. You can only imagine if U.S. troops start Instagramming their photos like we're seeing out of Gaza right now with the IDF.
Yeah, certainly I think, if anything, it helps to really fill in some blanks that were not there in the past in terms of having a better, more truthful, accurate history written.
It's really bringing us there when we need to be.
Absolutely. RT Web producer Andrew Blake, thanks as always.
Sure, thank you.